everyone, it's Lisa here, though you may know me better as Paper Daisy Creations, and I am so excited because we are finally getting into the really mysterious part of this cowl construction. As you know, we began with a provisional cast on, and what we're going to do now is pick up those stitches, and then we're going to be using them for clue 3 of the pattern. Okay, so what I have here, I just finished off this plaid section and I have my working yarn attached. This is the right side of my cowl, and down here is the right side of my provisional cast on. And you'll see I've got my green and purple markers, and those are marking my stitches so that I can correctly pick up my my held stitches so that we can use them for the next part of the pattern. Now, you can see these stitches much easier in my provisional cast on video. I'm going to show you how I'm picking these up, but you're not going to see them very well. So I recommend that for this part on picking up stitches, you watch the provisional cast on video. Now I'm going to look and see where my first stitch is, and that is where I'm going to pick up the right leg of my first worked stitch. I'm not picking up any stitches in the white. These are only in the C1 colorway that I used. And I'm just going to be picking up the right leg of each of those stockinette stitches all the way across. And this is our reason for making these stockinette and not garter. And there's another reason that you're going to see as we continue constructing this cowl. So just continue to look for that, that right leg of your stockinette stitch that's growing out of the provisional cast on. Be sure you're not picking up any extra yarns or splitting stitches. That might cause you trouble. One thing that's important to note is that if you do miss a stitch, the great thing about knitting is since we knitted the fabric this way, those bottom stitches don't really want to unravel. So it is fairly easy to catch them just due to the nature of the knitted fabric, that they are not going to quickly unravel. They take a little bit of snagging in order to get them to unravel. Okay, I'm going to work all the way across to that final stitch. I'm going to count my stitches, and I'm going to make sure that I have all of the correct amount. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, I have 49 stitches just as I'm supposed to. So now I'm going to remove this marker and this one, and I'm going to unravel that waste yarn. So if you have a slip knot held there, just undo that knot. And now you're just going to be picking this cast on apart, because the important stitches, those C1 stitches, are all on hold. And the way I like to do this is if you're holding it horizontally, these stitches here that are closest to me, I can just pull those out. And then the other side will be a lot easier. Now sometimes the yarn does split. If you are using for a waste yarn for provisional cast-ons, it's especially helpful if you use a tight twist yarn so that it's unlikely to split, and also a nice smooth silky yarn can be great if you have any of that in your stash as waste yarn. So I'm going to pick this whole side out, and then you'll see that this side will unravel much quicker. And again, as I showed in my video for the provisional cast on, you can snip that at any point because then it's less yarn that you have to pull through. So let me just finish unpicking this cast on, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Okay, so I've got my live stitches on the needles. The waste yarn has been removed. I've got 49 stitches, and now I'm ready to put these stitches onto the working needles. So here's what I'm going to do. Looking at the right side of your fabric, we have our I-cord side over here, and we have the garter stitch edging over here. And you'll understand why we have these two different edges in a couple short clues. I've got my stitches all on the needles. I'm going to put this marker on the very last stitch on this left-hand side, right along my garter stitch edge. Then looking up at the top of my knit, again, keeping the right side up, I had my working yarn, the pink, I just cut that, so that was my C5. I cut it, but it's still attached, and I'm going to attach a marker to the opposite end. So again, this is the garter edge. I'm putting a marker on the very last stitch. And the reason I'm putting these markers on is just a visual clue to help understand how I'm going to be arranging these stitches. I need to move all of the working stitches onto my working needles. And so what I'm going to do is, keeping the right side face up, I'm going to transfer the stitches tip to tip from my provisional cast on side onto the working needle. And so I've got these two markers, those sides are matching up. Be sure the right side is facing up and that you have not twisted the cowl at all. And all you're going to do is slip those stitches onto the needles, purlwise, one at a time. Make sure that none of the stitches are twisted. Make sure that none of them are split. You want nice, clean stitches ready to be worked. Okay, I've got all of my stitches joined, and it should look a bit like this. Now we're going to begin the next color in the next section of this clue. We're going to join C2, and I'm going to work across these stitches. So for this right side row, I'm not doing anything with the extra stitches. They're just on hold waiting for me. I'm going to work across the right side, and then I'm going to be working across the wrong side, and that's when the real excitement happens. Okay, and one thing I like to do is hold the tail with the working yarn to just weave that end in as I go. You don't have to do this, but working those stitches, it just weaves it in automatically. I work about 3 or 4 stitches, and then I can drop the tail and keep going. I just have to remember that when I come back, that those stitches are worked as a single stitch, even though they have the yarn doubled at that point. Okay, you can see I'm to the end of that row. I've got that purple marker there, indicating that spot. I'm going to slip that last stitch just as I have been doing. And then I'm going to turn my work. Next, I'm going to knit across all of those stitches until I get to those I-cord stitches. All right, I'm getting to my very last stitch. I am actually working these I-cord stitches as garter stitch now. I'm no longer working them as an I-cord, and I need to keep that last stitch on the needles because I'm going to work it as a purl 2 together with 1 stitch from my provisional cast on. And then I turn. All right, and then I'm going to be working these stitches. I'm going to introduce some patterning. We're going to do some different things, and you'll see these stitches gradually get eaten up along the wrong side as we continue to work this part of the pattern. Please follow along with with the written pattern. You can find this pattern and all of my patterns on Ravelry.com as well as PaperDaisyCreations.com. And I wish you all very happy knitting.